know?
Welcome to episode 23 of RKO.
You didn't know?
That was Russell you just heard. I'm Kayvon. Thank you for joining us for episode 23 here on Tuesday, May 26th, 2015. Well, it's official. Stone Cold Steve Ambrose is out of jail. He made it to the end of Raw just in time to sign his contract for his WWE World Heavyweight Championship match against Seth Rollins this Sunday at Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber turned out to be a pay-per-view event. It's exclusively on the network, but it's being treated like a pay-per-view, even though it's not officially on pay-per-view. And it was thrown in here between Payback and the upcoming Money in the Bank pay-per-view event. For the first time ever, we're getting a WWE Tag Team Championship Elimination Chamber match, 6 teams. And also we will crown the new Intercontinental Champion inside the Elimination Chamber, along with the WWE title match, a triple threat for the Divas title, and a couple other matches. Of course, on our RKO You Didn't Know Facebook page, we cover other wrestling organizations outside of WWE, but Russell and I usually like to talk WWE here on the podcast. Russell, I'd like to start this podcast by mentioning a couple things about the upcoming Elimination Chamber event. Kevin Owens is getting a lot of attention, the NXT champion, as he prepares to fight the United States champion in a non-title match, mind you, this Sunday at the Elimination Chamber. I mentioned this about Payback, the last pay-per-view, that I would like to see a NXT showcase match. They announced tonight that they're doing Bo Dallas versus Neville. Those two fought for a long time over the NXT championship in NXT. I would like to see maybe a Team Bo Dallas with some NXT heels versus a Team Neville match with some NXT faces. You get the two main roster guys, Bo Dallas and Neville, teaming with some NXT guys and bringing some more awareness to the NXT brand. I think that would be a great thing, even if it just happened on the kickoff show for Elimination Chamber. Regardless, I'm still happy to see a guy like Kevin Owens do something on the main roster. I definitely feel like he belongs there, and it feels right. So NXT, in my opinion, is picking up steam, and I think that's only going to continue to grow, as time goes on. Russell, is there anything in particular you're looking forward to at the Elimination Chamber this Sunday?
Well, I'm kind of intrigued of what they're going to be doing with the Tag Team Championship. As we've seen last night, a lot of tag teams, are on the roster now. And they're not just thrown together. They're actually, legitimate tag teams. So any of the ones that they are showcasing could be the next champion to defeat New Day. Now, New Day is getting a lot of heat. So, I am very intrigued to see, will Cesaro and Kid, will they take back the titles? Will we see the Ascension? Will we see the Lucha Dragons?
You like Cesaro and Kid quite a bit, right? You like Cesaro and Kid a bit. Are you still liking them as much as you did before?
The best thing about them is Natalia, but they do have a lot of good chemistry. I think over the last couple of weeks, the team that I would like to see actually get a chance to do something, because they are very good on the mic, is the Prime Time Players. They were, making backstage segments, making fun of each and every one of the other tag teams. And I just think they've, maybe it's their turn to, do something, and get the ball to them and see if they run with it.
I think so. Let me just say one thing about the primetime players before we move on. I think it's WWE's chance to right a wrong here because, in my opinion, they should have never split up the primetime players. WWE has done this thing with several teams, several superstars, where, unfortunately, they've split them up before they've given them enough time to simmer. And I think primetime players is an example of that. So I think right now they've spent weeks showing promos of them. I mean, they're good promos. Like you said, they're good talkers. And they've got some pretty entertaining promos. And now that they're back on track with the primetime players, I think now's their chance, even if they don't win Sunday, to bring them up into relevance again in WWE. But go ahead, Russell. What were you going to say?
Well, there's also a couple that that aren't in the Elimination Chamber. The Wyatt family. You could also make a case to have Goldust rejoin his brother, in some capacity, and we would have the Gold Star, as we used to refer to him,
right?
Reunite. So we've got at least 8, if not 9, good tag teams that we can look at, and perhaps they can start, giving these guys that haven't been on the roster or been showcased on the roster some time to develop and see what they can do. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, I totally agree. And for those wondering, Russell and I will post our full predictions for Elimination Chamber. We usually post it early on the day of the event. That's on our Facebook page, RKO You Didn't Know, just searching on Facebook. And you can view all the great content and like our page and view all the great content that we post and interact with all those posts and comment and let us know what you think too. So we'll definitely be talking, or rather giving our full predictions for WWE Elimination Chamber this upcoming weekend before the event. Russell, who are you thinking, just I guess one prediction we can give here on this podcast, who are you looking to walk away with the Intercontinental title? I'll go ahead and tell you that, in my opinion, I think it's either got to be Ryback or Sheamus. I like R-Truth. I think his time is way overdue. But if I'm being realistic, I think Ryback has the most potential. I think they're going to branch off and do the thing with Dolph Ziggler and Rusev without any title involvement. So I don't expect to see either of them walk away with the title. But I think Ryback is the main face in that match they're looking to walk away with. And I think Sheamus is the main heel in that match afterwards. So I would say either one of them two, most likely Sheamus, in my opinion. And I know it was rumored that he's probably the favorite to be the Intercontinental Champion. What do you think about that, Russell?
I actually think that they should give Wade Barrett the opportunity to take the Intercontinental title back. If you look back originally, he didn't lose the title when he got injured. He had to give up the title there when he got hurt. So, I think maybe they give him his title run that he didn't have.
But he came back and won it. I mean, he lost it at WrestleMania. So he did have a couple, if you remember, he beat Ziggler on the first Raw of this year for it. Now, granted, the way he lost it in a ladder match and not one-on-one. So right. I can understand that reasoning. He lost it at WrestleMania. And he never got a one-on-one rematch for the title, unless I'm forgetting the match he had with Bryan. But I don't think he did.
He just didn't have an opportunity to have the long reign that I think that his character could definitely.
Well, he could benefit from it because he's the king of the ring. So the thing about the king of the ring is, it used to be, if you remember, back in the day, there was a time period where the winner of the King of the Ring got a WWE title shot at SummerSlam. Like, King of the Ring was in June, and then the winner of the King of the Ring will get their title shot at SummerSlam. And to here's the thing. If Barrett loses too much, he lost tonight to Ryback on Raw. If he loses, or last night rather, if he loses too many times, that's going to diminish the King of the Ring win. That's the problem with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I say I think with them giving him the King of the Ring, and now he's King Barrett, that him getting the Intercontinental title makes more sense. I know Ryback is the number one face out of the group, especially with Rusev and Ziggler, having their own little thing going on. So, where does that leave Sheamus? Does Sheamus, does he play kind of the borderline heel? Because he's been doing some crazy things lately, so...
he's heel. He's full-fledged heel, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he also has a little bit of history, with Ziggler, and not only that, at any time, him and Barrett could go back at it. They've had history too. So, I think anybody in the Intercontinental Chamber match could come out as the Intercontinental Champion, except for R-Truth. I don't think to me, he was a throw-in. I would rather see Bray
I'm surprised
Wyatt
Neville wasn't in there. Well, I'm surprised Neville wasn't in there. You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, Neville was right in that group.
I think I like the Neville Bo Dallas. I like that because they have, they've got chemistry with each other from NXT. So, that one makes sense. To showcase both of them. They were both champions at one time in NXT. So I just think that, take the R-Truth out, put Bray Wyatt in there. Maybe that would still happen. Because what's Bray Wyatt doing right now? He doesn't have no opponent.
Yeah, but I feel like they're trying to make Bray Wyatt more of a special attraction. Like in Undertaker. I'm comparing Bray Wyatt to Undertaker again, but it is kind of like that, where it's like he's not always there, So if he's there less, it was the same thing with Brock Lesnar. When he's there, it's more special because he's not always there. You know what I mean? And that might be better for him, I think. I mean, if Bray Wyatt was in the Elimination Chamber match, would you then say, okay, he's the winner? He would definitely win.
I think the character of Bray Wyatt doesn't need a championship. Undertaker really, if you look over the years, he had a lot of championship runs, but his thing was more the streak and the dead man gimmick. Where I think Bray Wyatt is not going to be one, even with win or losses. If you look at his character, he could care less about who wins and who loses. He's just more about getting into the person's head. So I think, imagine that you got the Elimination Chamber and all of a sudden the lights go out and instead of, one of the original guys being in the chamber itself, you get Bray Wyatt, appears in the chamber where one of the other guys was supposed to be. That would be pretty neat, kind of a switcheroo there.
Well, if that's the case, maybe he takes out Ryback, and then that down the line continues his feud with Ryback because he screws him out of his chance in the Intercontinental title chamber match.
I just see right now that he doesn't have anything going on.
Right, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't.
And he shouldn't be left off the pay-per-view. In my opinion, this is a guy who fought the Undertaker 3 months ago. He should, you would expect that him coming off of a match with the Undertaker, whether he won or lost, he still, should have had a match.
Maybe, but I also, like I said, I understand their thinking. If their thinking is he's not going to be at every pay-per-view, he's going to be at every other or something like that, because it makes him more mysterious, more special. So we got Neville and Bo. We've got the triple threat for the Divas title, Nikki, Paige, and Naomi. We've got Rollins and Ambrose for the WWE title. And, of course, like we said, the Tag Team Elimination Chamber and the Intercontinental Elimination Chamber matches. I when I first heard about Elimination Chamber, I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a full-fledged pay-per-view type event or if it was going to be just like a 2-hour special, kind of like a mini pay-per-view or something. But looks like with the kickoff and everything, this is going to be, like I said, without it being on pay-per-view, a full-fledged pay-per-view, basically. And it's interesting because it's in Corpus Christi, Texas, and it was originally booked to be a house show, this event on Sunday. And they had another house show scheduled the same day, I think also somewhere in Texas. They ended up canceling that so that everyone could be at the Elimination Chamber event on Sunday. So it's interesting to have, and we talked about this on the last podcast too, to have this many big events, Payback, the Chamber, the upcoming Money in the Bank, in less than a month's time. I can't remember 3 events like this in WWE history since I've been watching, and certainly nothing I can remember in looking back in the record book. So it'll be interesting to see how that's all balanced out. And, of course, like I said, after the Elimination Chamber is Money in the Bank, which is very exciting because that'll be in my hometown of Columbus, which I will be at. So very excited to be at that. And I want to get your thoughts. I had a couple predictions for what I expect to see at Money in the Bank before anything's really announced. The only thing that's really been announced, of course, we're going to have the Money in the Bank ladder match. I assume only one. That's all I've heard of so far. Roman Reigns looks to be in it. And if they have 6 guys in it, my 6 guys I predicted, and this is what I want to ask you, Russell, if you agree with these predictions for the 6 guys in the Money in the Bank ladder match at the upcoming Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Roman Reigns, pretty much a shoe-in here. Dolph Ziggler and Rusev. So I think that feud continues into the Money in the Bank ladder match. Sheamus, I think, whether or not he wins the Intercontinental title, I think I still expect to see him in the in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Neville, just because I think in a ladder match he is going to be, you can only imagine with the moveset he does and the type of wrestler he is, what he would be like in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And the 6th guy I pick, just to throw a wrench in the story, is Kane. I think maybe as the director of operations, he puts himself in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So those are the 6 guys I pick. I know there are a few wild picks in there, but Russell, who would you expect to see in the Money in the Bank ladder match?
Well, of course, you're going to have Reigns. I do agree with you on Ziggler and Rusev. So those are 3 right there. I'm thinking Ambrose will get in it. So there's my 4. 5 would probably be, I don't know if Kane will be in it or not. It depends on what happens here at the Elimination Chamber. Because there was a play there that he might be going face again, and breaking away from the Authority. So, that's kind of an intriguing pick there. I think Sheamus is involved because I don't think he is winning the Intercontinental belt. And perhaps maybe Bray Wyatt.
Well, the reason I didn't put Dean Ambrose in it is because I think he's going to continue with another match with Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. And I would like to see, of course, these are just complete predictions. I'm just going off of, I guess, what I would like to see if I was looking at, a ladder-themed pay-per-view. I would like to see them in a ladder match. I think it would be really crazy to see Rollins and Ambrose in a ladder match for the world title. So, all right, Russell, if you say Ambrose is going to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match and so is Reigns, who does Seth Rollins face at Money in the Bank for the title?
Well, that's why I was saying about the Kane. I don't know if, with Elimination Chamber happening and then 2 weeks later we have the Money in the Bank. You know, I still have the feeling that something's going to happen with Kane, and he's going to turn, or he's going to, you know, go back to being safe, and he might get the opportunity to, you know, save.
Not cost Rollins the title, though. You think he'll cost Rollins the title?
I think something's going to happen. I mean, this pay-per-view that you're doing, you know, Elimination Chamber, there has to be something that happens in order to get a little bit of buzz. And, you know, whether it's Kane interferes and costs, you know, whether he interferes and costs Seth Rollins the match, or, you know, he, on purpose or by accident, there just has to be something that happens to draw attention to this pay-per-view, especially since it's going to be exclusively on the WWE network that you can get for the low price of $9.99. So I think they've got to do something in particular to sell that. And, you know, it only makes sense for Kane to be the one that messes things up or decides to go in a different direction.
Well, the funny thing about that is I agree. I can totally see that happening. And leading up to Payback, the stuff between Rollins and Kane was getting intense. But, you know, last night on Raw, they teamed together, and they haven't had any problems, seemingly, for the past few weeks. So I don't know if they're literally squashing the idea of them having an issue or what. But it seems like as of right now, they're getting along, you know, pretty well. But I got to imagine at some point, Kane has just got to – I mean, I know, Russell, you're waiting for Kane to – I mean, I know you really don't like Corporate Kane. You just don't like Kane as Corporate Kane. So you're just waiting for him to just become the old Kane and just unleash on the Authority or on Seth Rollins, right?
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's the problem with the TG era that we're in now. You know, when he first made his debut, you know, he was totally different character-wise. I mean, you know, he didn't talk, you know, he had that kind of Jason Voorhees or, you know, Michael Myers.
Right.
That's what kind of drew me to him.
He was scary. He was scary.
Yeah, I mean, you knock him down and, you know, hit him with chairs and everything else, and he'd be laying there, and then all the next thing you know, he'd set up, and it kind of reminded me of the old scary movies where the guy gets knocked down, and, you know, the girl goes by him thinking that she's, you know, hurt him or whatever, and then he grabs her leg, you know, and that's kind of what I liked about it, that, you know, that he had that era of him, and you know, really go back to that, you know, maybe not the scary monster, sadistic, setting JR on fire, you know, kind of thing, but why not have him go back to, you know, when him, The Rock, and Hogan were, you know, kind of tagging together there for a minute, where he was kind of doing a little bit of the Canaanites, you know, when I said of the Hulkamaniacs, he had the Canaanite stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially if he's going to go face. And the guy, you know, some of the things that I've read was, even by him, is that he's not retiring anytime soon. He enjoys what he's doing. He can get in the ring and still go. Does he deserve another title run? I think, yeah, he deserves something. You know, I mean, Triple H said on his podcast, and, you know, and on the internet was that, you know, Kane, when he thinks about him, he's the constant. You know, he's the constant worker. He puts people over. You know, I mean, look how many times Triple H has ruined his character, you know, whether it was, you know, the mannequin deal with Katie Vick or whether it was him having the mask taken off originally the first time, or even with the thing with China, you know, there for a minute. It was always something around Triple H if you look back. And so I think he kind of, needs to have some kudos given to him for being that constant worker, you know, giving the younger guys the rub for, you know, many, many years. So I'd like to see that happen.
You know, it could be a situation where they're doing a very slow build to Kane challenging Seth. And we briefly talked about this on the last podcast where I asked you, do you think you can see Kane challenging Seth Rollins being one of, I personally expect to see Seth Rollins champion for a long time, at the very least through SummerSlam. And to me, he's just going to keep having a series of title matches. You know, he's going to run through Ambrose right now. You know, of course, with the help of J&J and the Authority and whatnot. But I think Kane is going to be one of those, you know, obstacles that Rollins is going to go through and conquer. But in that process, that doesn't mean that we might not see Kane get the mask back on and become, you know, the devil's favorite demon. And, you know, I think we need another huge heel like that. I mean, obviously the Authority is a heel stable, but outside of that, when I think of main roster heels, I mean, we talked about Sheamus, but, I mean, Sheamus is fighting mid-card right now. You know, Intercontinental titles mid-card. I mean, he's not fighting for the WWE title, so it's basically any face against the Authority. And the Authority storyline has been going on basically since 2013. So, I mean, we're talking 2 years now. So that's a long storyline. You know, I mean, the corporation went on for a long time. And, I mean, I guess there's something to be said that the Authority storyline will be ongoing and never really end. You know, you always see different incarnations of it. And I get that, but I don't know. I think at some point, you know, Kane versus Seth Rollins is something people are going to want to see, even if it's just a one-off on a pay-per-view, or maybe even if it's just on a Raw. You know, Kane puts the mask back on, you know, gets his revenge on Rollins, and then continues down a different road as the old Kane. But, you know, I guess that's yet to be seen. Russell, another thing I want to ask you about, I was sitting there thinking tonight, I was literally trying to think in my mind how long Nikki Bella has been Divas champion. Now, she won the Divas title at Survivor Series this past year. So this month marks 6 months of her as champion. I like the Bellas a lot because I think they're great for WWE. Obviously, they're very unique. Two twins who are just, you know, drop dead gorgeous, and I think their wrestling has, you see it. Nikki especially has just improved leaps and bounds, you know, since her debut, both of them, and you know, like, they've been in some, you know, questionable storylines and whatnot. But I think overall, you know, I would hate to see them go. So I don't know. Is it Paige? Is it Naomi? Is it Tamina? Is it an NXT diva who's coming up soon? Is it Brie? How do you feel about Nikki's long title reign? When does it end? In your perfect world, who would take it from her?
I think this is the chance that they can actually give Naomi the win. And, you know, I think they kind of hand seed the Bellas because that is their brand. That is a big brand. They basically have used those two, Nikki and Brie, to promote Total Divas. So I think they want to continue to make them look strong, especially since John Cena and Daniel Bryan, two fan favorites, are, you know, their significant others.
And the fans know that.
Yeah, and the fans know it. My thing is, when do they become face? You know,
well, it's just like when
they're out there
Brie
getting booed and
right. Well, it's just like how Brie just forgave Nikki out of nowhere because they're sisters, and you know, they can overcome any trouble they have because they're sisters. It was just there's no good explanation. It's just happening.
Even the best movies have questionable storylines. I mean, if you think about it, why did why did Brie Bella forgive her sister so quickly? How it's kind of like saying, how come Luke Skywalker was named Luke Skywalker, and he was supposed to be hiding his name from his father, Anakin Skywalker? Why would he keep the same name? I mean, that's the crazy storyline that you get every now and then when the writers, think, okay, this isn't working, we got to do something, and hopefully
people just forget. People forget this happened. Yeah.
So the good thing is this, is that I think this is the opportunity they could do where they've got Paige, Nikki Bella, Naomi. I think Naomi's time is now. I think she has worked very, very hard. And I said this on the last podcast, if it wasn't for her getting injured with the bad eye when she got hurt, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? Might not have been that long. I think they were kind of grooming her then to break away from the Funkadactyls and be on her own, and the crowd was very much behind her. And I think now they can actually pull the trigger and not make Nikki Bella be the one to lose, because they can have
Paige get
and win,
right.
And kind of the same thing they did with the triple threat, where with the Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins, you're talking about the Royal Rumble.
Or the Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
where you still had three great participants, and we don't want to make Nikki Bella look weak. So if anything, Nikki Bella hits her ending move on Paige, and then Naomi and Paige, something like that. And I think that they need to do this and allow Naomi to either flourish or see if she could handle being a champion.
Oh, I think she can. I think Naomi is just amazing. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a female athlete like as graceful and as spot on as Naomi. I think she is just great, such an asset to the Divas division, and I couldn't be more excited about the upcoming Divas division. They had NXT TakeOver Unstoppable, which is like NXT. For those who don't watch NXT, they do this about every 2 months where they have it's just on the network, but it's an NXT pay-per-view basically. It's a 2-hour event, but they have like a pre-show and everything. The second to last match was the NXT Women's Championship match. The champion Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch, and it was probably the greatest women's match I've ever seen. They went a long time, and they beat the crap out of each other. I mean, in the best way, though. I mean, they gave the audience everything and more of themselves. And it was just so it's so exciting because those women are coming up to the main roster at some point. And Triple H had said something in an interview where he wants it to be, because they had an NXT house show a couple weeks ago, and the Divas main event at the house show. And he made a comment where he said, I want it to get to the point where Divas main eventing a show is not a big deal, meaning it's just as common as guys main eventing. And I think the NXT women are pioneering just a new generation of women. And it kind of makes me think, I wish we still had the brand split between Raw and SmackDown, because the type of wrestlers, and this is not a knock on the current main roster divas, it's just the type of wrestlers that the main roster divas are versus the type that are coming from NXT. I just think it's just going to be strange to see how they all gel, because the way they're used to working. So if you get the NXT divas and you put them on SmackDown for a while before Raw, I think that would be really nice. I mean, Russell, I mean, don't you think that if we had the split still between Raw and SmackDown, you know, you would think with a 3-hour Raw, we would showcase so many more superstars, but we don't. I just think it would be two different writing teams. It would be so much better. I mean, did you prefer it when they have the split, or do you like it all blended together like it is now?
No, I liked it when they had the split. I think the extra hour on Raw,
it's brutal. It's so long.
It's brutal because, you know, a lot of that is promoting upcoming events. It's a Raw rebound. It's, you know, talking about, you know, your apps and what they're selling. And,
yeah,
you know, it's like, okay, you know, stupid backstage segments. I like the Raw SmackDown split because it made it feel like, you know, it did feel like two different rosters, two different shows. And I liked it when it came together, when they competed against one another, you know, Raw versus SmackDown. The reason I think they got away from that is because SmackDown started beating them in ratings. And they
that's
had
when Paul Heyman was the main writer for SmackDown.
He was the main writer, yet
yeah,
Stephanie was the general manager at the time. So you would think that she would have been happy, but, you know, Vince's bread and butter was the Raw brand. And so, you know, it had a very unique roster at the time. I don't think they could do that again with who they have. You know, if anything, what I would love to see them do is take NXT and make that SmackDown. That way they actually could, you know, they can still tape it live, but put it out there instead of it being just on the WWE network.
You're saying basically put NXT on cable, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's getting that much,
mm-hmm.
I mean, the internet buzz is that NXT is even better than TNA.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's better than Raw. I mean, to me, it's. I've said this countless times. It's my favorite show. The thing that would worry me about getting it on cable is that everyone who handles the main roster and Vince McMahon will dip their hands too much into NXT, and it'll lose what's special about it, if that makes sense. I mean, right now it's taped in a very small. I mean, even if you tape it in the same place, I think the influence of it being on cable and having it become that big, it'll become something. It'll become too WWE main roster-ish. But I think what they're doing now by slowly integrating those NXT stars, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, if you just per pay-per-view have an NXT showcase match, I mean, not just where Kevin Owens, one guy, is fighting John Cena, which I think is going to be really cool, but if you showcase, even if it's just on the pre-show, an NXT-only match, I think that would really help people go, it would help their subscribers maybe like, we can only watch NXT. I really like those guys, but we can only watch them on the network. We don't have the network. We should get the network. Or it would make the people who watch NXT and don't watch the main roster, which, believe me, there's got to be those kinds of people. They would watch the main roster more to look for their NXT guys and see them, you know, with the main roster people. So I just think that'll happen over time. I think NXT, the popularity of it is just growing in leaps and bounds, and I think anyone who isn't watching it has to give it a chance because it is, no joke, the best show WWE puts on each week. I mean, it is. I look forward to it more than Raw. I mean, I'm not kidding. It is that good. And you don't have to sit through 3 hours, by the way. You sit through a little less than an hour without commercials on the network. So it's even better in that sense.
One thing I was reading online is, and this is probably one of the ultimate compliments that you can get, came from Joey Styles, which we know that he was the announcer for ECW
Mm-hmm.
there for many, many years. And he said that basically NXT is ECW without all the crazy blood.
Right.
And that's a big-time compliment as far as, you know, being their own brand and, you know, setting the stage to something different. And that's what made ECW so popular. And I guess that's where you're going to, how they film it and where it's filmed at and the closeness of the audience and so forth.
Oh, the fans are so passionate.
Branded.
They're so passionate, yeah. It's just like
same fans.
Yeah, right. It's
so, you know, that does make sense.
Yeah, it's something really to watch. If you didn't watch, if you have a network and you don't watch NXT or didn't watch the Unstoppable NXT Takeover special from last week, do yourself a favor. Watch it. It's amazing. Russell, I guess just to end our episode 23, like we said, there's a lot to look forward to coming up in WWE. Elimination Chamber this Sunday, Money in the Bank coming up in June, mid-June. That tag team Elimination Chamber match will be interesting. It's the first of its kind, so it'll be interesting to watch, and a lot of cool stuff to look for. I mean, it's in a very busy but exciting time in WWE, I think. And also one more thing to mention about NXT and former TNA fans. Samoa Joe debuted at the end of the NXT Unstoppable Takeover special. So any TNA fans who aren't really familiar with what's going on in WWE or with NXT, Samoa Joe, who was a staple in NXT for years, is now with WWE, and he is on NXT. So that's something, maybe a little incentive to watch NXT if you haven't before. So a lot coming up. Definitely check out our Facebook page. Look out for our Elimination Chamber predictions, which will be posted this weekend, probably on Sunday before the event itself. Like the page, comment on the page, just search RKO You Didn't Know on Facebook. And we post not only WWE stuff, but Lucha Underground, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and TNA. So check us out on there. We appreciate your support, and we want to gain more and more followers so we can keep this podcast and this RKO You Didn't Know community growing. Russell, do you want to take us home and add anything else here at the end?
Yeah, just something I wanted to add. With these crazy storylines, how they can happen at a drop of a dime. The one thing that I am getting disappointed on, I'm happy that a lot of these guys from NXT, like, you know, Rusev and Bray Wyatt and so on, are getting the opportunity to be on the main roster. The reason I say Bray Wyatt and Rusev is because I think those are two characters that were brought in from NXT that have come off as very strong characters. I'm just hoping that storyline and booking does not destroy these characters. And the reason I say that is because Bray Wyatt seems like he's not the same person he was when he first debuted. Maybe he needs to go back to having that family around him, kind of like the cult that I thought they were going to do originally. The other thing I'm not liking at all is the Lana, Rusev, Dolph Ziggler
love triangle,
especially after last night's little love triangle. Yeah, to see Rusev, you know, being upset about her kissing Ziggler.
He's begging.
It didn't go for his character, you know, especially one that comes from from a different country. You know, I could not see a Bulgarian brute, saying, "You'll kiss someone else." You know, how could you do this?
It's too mushy.
Yeah, it was too mushy for his character. It made him look weak. Made him look like he was a crybaby. I know they're trying to get her over with the fans and kind of separate the two. But, you know, if anything, come up with a better way than to add Dolph Ziggler into a love triangle. I mean, granted, Dolph Ziggler has had some crazy love triangles, but you just, the chemistry's not there between the two of them. And we know that in real life, Lana and Rusev are actually together.
Yeah.
Or at least dating. I don't know if they're married or anything.
I think they're engaged, but they're definitely living together.
Yeah, they're definitely together. So it kind of, you know, we've been down that road before kind of thing with these divas. We see what ends up happening. You know, it might get complicated. Dolph Ziggler doesn't need the girl to get over with the fans. He's over with the fans. In fact, one thing that I've seen on the internet, and then we'll take it home, that I would be probably the best thing for him if they really want to put him over, and that's get him Ric Flair. And Ric Flair has said that he would love to manage Dolph Ziggler, that is one of his ultimate dreams, is to be Dolph Ziggler's manager, because he sees so much potential in him that he reminds him of Shawn Michaels so much with his work ethic, including, you know, his backstage politics too. But that is one of the things that if he did anything, he would love to manage Dolph Ziggler. And I think that would be a crazy combination of, you know, Ric Flair and Dolph Ziggler. I could see those two, and I could see Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar, and the four of those, that's money right there. You got two biggest mouthpieces, you know, in WWE history with Ric Flair and Paul Heyman on the mic, and you've got the Beast and the guy that can bump around the ring and take anything that Brock Lesnar could give, you know, and make it look like a train wreck, you know, as far as putting it over. I just think that would be an ultimate money feud right there. I just think, you know.
Oh, I agree. I would love to see that. They tried to put Rick with The Miz for a minute. You remember that? But it didn't work. It just wasn't working. It didn't work,
and that's why I say I think Ric Flair with Dolph Ziggler could work. You know,
right.
That could be something that could be exciting. One last thing, you know, we were talking about Kane. You know, if you're going to let him have one more title run, why not let it go against Brock Lesnar also? You know, there's a perfect storyline right there. You know, hey, you beat my brother, try beating me, you know, for revenge or something. But
right.
That would give Kane an ultimate rub. You know, if he had it one more time, he could even have the Undertaker, you know.
But the way to do that, he would have to have the mask back on, and then for a while he would just have to be destroying guys so that it would be believable again that Kane could possibly beat Brock Lesnar. That's the thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because as Corporate Kane, there's no way Corporate Kane could beat Brock Lesnar. But if you put fear back into him and have him just start running through guys, you know, and gain this undefeated streak, then it would be believable that he could beat Brock Lesnar at a point, just because he's on such a roll. You know what I mean?
And they can do it really quick. It doesn't have to be a drawn-out thing.
It doesn't have to be a year, but I mean, just maybe 2 months, maybe. You know, Rumble to WrestleMania.
Yeah, and they kind of been playing with it when they talk about the Undertaker and they talk about Paul Bearer, and he says to him, "I've told you not to talk about my family."
Right.
You know, but you continue to, and it could set him off. You know,
right.
Or eventually that could, you know, get the wheels a turning there. I mean, if he could do to somebody like he did to Daniel Bryan, you know, with the tombstone on the stairs and where Stephanie's like, oh my God, I don't know what we're going to do, to the point where, they've got to actually call somebody, or, to make it look believable. It could be set up perfectly. And I think the guy deserves to have one last hurrah. But according to him, he's not ready to retire, so it could be years down the road. I mean, he
could be a few years still, yeah.
Could see Kane for a long time, so.
Right.
Other than that, I think, this next pay-per-view is interesting. Definitely not going to be a throwaway because it is a free one on the pay-per-view network. So I'm hoping that we get some kind of controversy or some type of buzz, going into Money in the Bank. So we shall see. Our predictions will be put on online in a couple days, and we'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss the fallout from the Elimination Chamber and the upcoming pay-per-view of Money in the Bank. For Russell and for Kayvon, you've heard from episode 23 of RKO. You didn't know? Anything else?
I think that's it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next time on episode 24.
You didn't know?